It has been written that a hitch of Clydesdales moved down the street with a muffled thunder of trampling feet and a roar like the roar of the tides.
Hit the trembling ground. 32 shoes make a thundering sound. The gleaming red wagon rolling behind. 8 proud champions of their kind. They're the big ones. The Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. Mains be ribbon, harness shining. They're the big ones. White feathers on legs and carried once an armored knight, and on each proud head a blaze of white. A burnished bay coat shines in the sun. Black is the mane and tail of each one. They're the big ones. The Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. 17 hands and a ton of peas. They're the big ones. Because men will always cherish the sight of a well-tuned hitch with all its might. Polished leather, gleaming in the sun, 16 tons majestically, moving as one. They're the big ones. The Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. Mains be ribbon, harness gleaming. They're the big ones. Names of grand champions roll down the years. Sir James and Gowrie lad among their peers. Sailor and Mabel, MacDonald and Bellew. Bellew, Commander and Commando Dean too. They're the big ones. The Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. Coming from Scotland with a pride of breed. They're the big ones.
This is the home of the big ones, at the Anheuser Busch brewery in St. Louis, Missouri. Officially designated by the United States Department of the Interior as a national landmark. It's here that the team rests between appearances at state fairs, horse shows, parades, and celebrations all over the country. Travels that average close to 25,000 miles a year. This is also where the young ones are trained and prepared for that day when they'll take their place in the team. Moving with a stately, powerful gait, he counts among his ancestors those giants who roamed the valley of the River Clyde and carried armored knights into battle in the Middle Ages. Only those Clydesdales that when fully grown weigh at least a ton and have that beautiful bay color, the heavy white hairs on their legs called feathers, and that distinctive patch of white on the head called a blaze, only those will be considered eligible for the hitch. Braiding the mane, that intricate pattern of weaving ribbons through the hair, requires skill on the part of the groom, patience on the part of the horse. But he seems to understand that all this decoration is part of the badge of office. This makes him one of the big ones, and a champion must look like a champion. Getting used to wearing their special harness is something else for the rookie Clydesdales to learn. The harness for one 8-horse team costs $30,000, and each piece of it is carefully and painstakingly made by hand. This is a learning and practice 2-horse hitch wagon. which teaches the youngsters to work side by side with each other. Many hours, many weeks, many months are spent here before they graduate to the big red wagon. Anheuser Busch used beautiful horses to pull its brewery wagons up until the time of Prohibition. In 1933, in anticipation of the end of Prohibition, August A. Busch Jr. assembled the first 8-horse hitch. And on the day after repeal, the first case of Budweiser was delivered in Washington by a Clydesdale drawn wagon, much like the ones seen by hundreds of millions of people from coast to coast today. Getting a pair of shoes can be a problem, and if you're a Clydesdale, it takes on even greater dimensions. Their shoes are all handmade by a blacksmith in St. Louis. No machine-made horseshoe could come close to fitting them. It takes a piece of steel 22 inches by 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch to make one shoe. And when it's finished, each shoe weighs 4 3/4 pounds.
Miles of traveling this wide, wonderful land, from craggy mountains to the sunny Florida sand. 8 big tons of majestic grace, moving with a proud and measured pace. They're the big ones, the Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. Mains be ribbon, harness gleaming. They're the big ones.
The wagon the Clydesdales pull weighs 3.5 tons and is a carbon copy of an original beer wagon. The horses respond quickly and intelligently through a series of precise and intricate maneuvers.
Here they come like the roar of the tides. Here come the horses, is the call from all sides. Close to 25,000 miles a year, pulling parade load or wagon with beer. They're the big ones, the Clydesdales, the Clydesdales. A memory of days long gone by. They're the big ones.
A Clydesdale kind of town, Chicago is. Meet the big ones in St. Louis, underneath the arch. Or follow Old Man River down to New Orleans, where jazz and the Clydesdales march along together. On to Houston, where the eyes of Texas take a look at the big ones. Now to Old Town in Albuquerque. Here in this square, Albuquerque was established in 1706. And of course, the Clydesdales feel right at home at the daddy of them all Cheyenne frontier days. from the daddy of them all to Independence Hall in Philadelphia. New York, New York, the big city, and the big ones feel right at home. Marching down Fifth Avenue on a rainy summer day in the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Or a chilly November day in the Macy's Parade. Perhaps the biggest event during the year for the big ones, at least in terms of people watching, is the annual Tournament of Roses parade on New Year's Day. The team has represented the city of St. Louis since 1953. This float was called Gypsy Days, a unique float in the form of a picturesque gypsy wagon to be pulled by the 8-horse hitch. Nearly 200,000 flowers, carnations, tulips flown from Holland, poinsettias, and many others were used to decorate Gypsy Days. In the past Tournament of Roses parades, the Clydesdales have worn blankets of roses. In this one, however, each wore a floral arch with approximately 1,000 carnations of yellow, rose, tangerine, pink, and red.
"32 hooves hit the trembling ground. 32 shoes make a thundering sound. The gleaming red wagon rolls behind. 8 proud champions of their kind. They're the big ones. The Clydesdales, the Clydesdales.